Member for Swan Hills.
Mr Speaker, I would like to commence by first congratulating you on your appointment as Speaker, as well as congratulating all the members that were elected to this Parliament, especially the class of 2008. It's a great honour and opportunity, and I hope the excitement and awe we felt on our first day is with us every day we are in this Parliament. I would publicly like to thank the large number of supporters for their help in the recent election to make my presence here possible. In particular, my wife Shauna, who's up there looking at me, of course, who was with me every step of the way during my campaign. This included door knocking the thousands of houses in Ellenbrook. I should also mention that Lara, our almost 5-year-old daughter, also door knocked for several days with her mum and dad. She showed great potential as a future politician. Unfortunately, she was proving more popular than her dad, and I had to put a stop to it. Thank you also to all our babysitters, particularly Lara's grandparents, Pat and Ray Davey, Mel Fernandez and Liz Cassie. We chalked up some magic moments and memories and made a lot of new friends along the way. I'm sure nothing will rival the passion of a first election campaign. For me, it's been a long journey, starting on a hot February day in 1956, arriving with my mother and younger brother by ship in Fremantle in 45-degree heat. Not a good first impression. I didn't care. I was seeing my dad for the first time in over a year. My father had arrived over a year earlier to work to pay for our fare. He had adjusted to being in a strange country. Judging by my mother's face, on every one of the 300 kilometres of endless gravel and bush to Pemberton, on the back of a farmer's truck full of furniture and supplies, I knew she had more than normal concerns. We settled in the mill house. My father was working in the timber mill. I attended St Joseph's Convent School in Pemberton, and the Sisters of St Joseph were saints. I initially received a basic education, the equivalent of Year 10. This was quite common 40 years ago, as at that stage my parents were farmers. However, I share the passion of all migrants and Australians for the best education possible for all our kids. In the same week as my election, my youngest son Julian graduated just down the road at University of WA with a law degree. My eldest son Joanne has a marketing degree from Monash University in Melbourne. My eldest daughter Emily is currently at Curtin University, and my youngest daughter Lara will be offered the same opportunity. Not all students want or need a university degree. My wish for young Western Australians is that they are able to access the best education option we can provide for them. We live in an extremely competitive world, and education is the key to our future. This story of migrants arriving in Australia with only a suitcase is familiar in Western Australia and to many in the Swan Valley. However, I do not remember it all in a good light. Perhaps because of the war. Perhaps few Australians ventured overseas. The normally friendly Australians weren't that friendly. Life as a migrant in the 50s and 60s was difficult. No one ever complained. We were here to stay. The way my father described the situation in later years is that very few hands were extended in friendship and very few doors were opened for us. The Italian philosophy for success was to work longer and harder than anyone else. That would guarantee success, a philosophy that still works today. It is interesting to note that the racial problem stopped the moment that my brother and I both made the A-grade football team and a place in the combined Lower Southwest football team. It didn't matter if you were purple with pink spots, as long as you could play football. We became instant Australians at that point, and nothing much has changed in the status and passion of sport in Western Australia. I am sure that the early Italian migrants would be proud to see that there are 5 members of Italian descent in this chamber today. My parents are both gone. I'm sure they are smiling down from somewhere. May I also add that I believe we do now extend our hand in friendship and open as many opportunities as possible to our migrants. I spent the early part of my working life as a farmer, so I'm pleased to say that the electorate of Swan Hills has a large proportion of agricultural land as well as a balance of residential areas. It really has three distinctive parts: Ellenbrook with its many estates, the Swan Valley with its agriculture and tourism precincts, and the lifestyle section of the hills communities. In some of these areas, development is welcome, and in others, development is of concern. The first part of my electorate is the township of Ellenbrook and its surrounding estates. This well-designed township has won many awards. The area was established as a potential regional centre, and being at least 20 kilometres from other regional centres is relatively isolated. So much was promised on the establishment of Ellenbrook. Relatively inexpensive land, initially $50,000 a block, and so much potential. It would be the equivalent of Bunbury, was one of the claims. However, after 14 years, the promised land of Ellenbrook is better described as a land of promises, of which very few have been kept. There was an expectation that it would quickly be self-sufficient as a regional centre, but that expectation has stalled. There are currently 17,000 people in Ellenbrook, but the business district is a standstill because of a restrictive covenant in place until December of 2018. Public transport, essential because of its isolation, is basic. There are no jobs worth mentioning, and the population needs to travel for most of its services. This is largely due to this covenant. I'm happy to say that this government has committed to investigate the legality of this restrictive covenant. The challenge is to get Ellenbrook back on track and progressing as soon as possible. I'm not happy with the current exodus of people needing to travel elsewhere for services and jobs. A large part of the Swan Valley is within the Swan Hills electorate. This remarkable area, which is predominantly agricultural, though protected by the Swan Valley Planning Act, is under threat. The very essence of what is the valley, the vineyards, is under threat as farmers age, and the attractiveness of this area as a lifestyle location is leading to the removal of vines. They are not viable in small acreages. We will need to find an answer for this problem soon. Tourism has been extremely successful in the valley, and support for this industry, both in the Swan Valley as well as in other areas of Western Australia, is important. Unfortunately, tourism, like agriculture, are treated as poor relatives in economic terms and do not compete with a mineral boom for attention. We should be careful not to put all our eggs in one basket. Booms do not last forever, and a balance of industries as state income is necessary. This state needs to be able to do more than dig endless holes in the ground for our financial survival and future. The Hills area is the most environmentally sensitive part of all the Swan Hills electorate, stretching from Bullsbrook in the north to Gidgegannup, Brigadoon and Mundaring to the east. All these areas are under threat by developments. Not all development is bad, but a balance needs to be found. These eastern hills are an important border and complement the Perth metropolitan area. Where some development is welcome, wholesale subdivision is not. It is important to have adequate infrastructure, such as schools, police and emergency services, as well as the basics of power, water and sewerage in place, planned at the same time as developments, so as not to establish ghettos and create more problems than we solve. In the hills, on the rise of the Scarp, overlooking Bells Rapids, is a great opportunity for this state to create a dream for future generations and a potential tourist destination in its own right, just as Kings Park already has been to this state. The pieces of the puzzle are not together at this moment, but nothing worth doing is ever easy. This portion of land is approximately 400 hectares, the same size as Kings Park. This land is presently privately owned and in the process of being developed. In my opinion, it has a considerable number of environmental challenges for developers and a great deal of concern from the community to its development. I believe this land of rocky outcrops, waterfalls and wildlife, in almost pristine bushland overlooking the Swan River, the last of such land in metropolitan Western Australia, should be safe for posterity. We should not only plan for the day, but bank environmental assets for future generations to enjoy. And finally, Mr. Speaker, while we are busy planning and developing our state with skyscrapers, railway lines, stadiums, and performing economic miracles, it is important we not forget the disadvantaged, the handicapped and the elderly, all of whom are our responsibility. These people are the most likely to be overlooked in the rush of progress. My commitment is that I will not forget the most in need. Thank you.